Shalom. There is a worldwide effort to undermine and delegitimize one of the greatest countries in the world, the State of Israel. The effort is called BDS, for boycott, D for divest, and S for sanction. You can see it happening all over the world. Boycott Israeli products, divest from Israeli companies, sanction Israel in the UN. The percentage of resolutions in the UN against Israel overwhelms any other country and all the other countries put together. But instead of BDS, those who understand that Israel is one of the great countries of the world and should stand by her and support her, and know that if we don't stand by Israel, the whole country, the whole world will go down the tubes. We should stand for, instead of BDS for boycott, divestment, and sanction, BDS should stand for bracha, which means tout the blessings of Israel so the whole world can understand what's at stake. D should be din, judgment. The judgment we have to wreak upon those enemies and those perpetrators of evil. And S for shalom, that we have to strive for shalom. Now, what do I mean about touting the blessings of Israel? Well, first of all, you can't live today, really, without touching an Israeli product which has enhanced your life. The computer, you wouldn't have the computer without Israel. It certainly wouldn't be as efficient. Your cell phone, many of your medicines, the books, the literature, so many of the developments in the world, desalinization of water, drip irrigation to help countries with poor water and little water grow foods. Every day, Israel comes up with some innovation and technology to enhance our lives. And this is despite being one of the most tortured nations in the world. No country lives with the kind of threats that Israel does. They leave Hamas completely, Gaza completely, and they don't want Gaza. They leave Gaza, and what do they get? 8,000 missiles. Hezbollah's got 50,000 missiles in Lebanon. Syria was building a nuclear bomb until Israel destroyed it. They have constant threats from Iran. So many of the nations of the world condemn Israel. The average Israeli just going down the street has to worry about suicide bombers until they built the separation barrier to try and stop it, which it has. What other country in the world has such horrible situation, and yet look what they've done. It's just phenomenal. And it goes to the amazing productivity of Israel. They made the desert bloom. There were no trees when they got there. The Turks had denuded the land during the Ottoman Empire. Now there's hundreds of millions of trees that they've planted there. And what have they done for peace? It's unbelievable. They gave away the Sinai Desert with the oil wells to Egypt for peace. They gave away Gaza, hoping that there'd be peace, and what do they get? Were missiles instead. Time and time again, Israel's given back land, and what has it gotten instead? It has had a cold peace with Egypt now, but they've demonstrated they're willing, and they offered 98% of the West Bank, 98% of the West Bank to Arafat, and what did he do? He started an intifada war. So that's the bracha of Israel we have to tout. And no nation has a better claim to the land of Israel, or to any land. What claim do you have to the United States, or whatever country you're watching? Helen Thomas says the Jews should go back to Germany. She should go back to Lebanon, and I should go back to Pinsk, where my grandparents came from. Americans have no right to be here. The only people that were here were the Native Americans. We stole the land. But Israel, on the other hand, has the best claim to any land in the country. It has a claim based on the Bible. Do you believe in the Bible? Read the Bible. Read the Old Testament, the Hebrew Bible. It's a Zionist document. The Jews have a right to the land of Israel. By international law, they have a right to the land of Israel. By history, no land has as close a tie to the history as the Jewish people. And Obama was completely wrong when he said to Cairo the reason for Israel is the Holocaust. The Jews have had a tie to Israel for 4,000 years, better than any claim to anybody, any land in the world. You know who the Palestinians were? The Palestinians were Jews. When you say the Palestinian Post, that was a Jewish newspaper. And the Palestinian Railroad and the Palestinian currency, that was all Jewish. The Palestinians are a made-up people. They didn't exist 100 years ago. It's just one big lie to try and steal Jewish land. Now, the D, instead of divest, stands for din. You know, we don't live in the Messianic era. We don't live in a perfect world. We don't live in a world in which you can't defend yourself. We have to defend ourselves and fight the evil. This flotilla nonsense, Turkey did it purposely to try and put Israel in an awkward position and to kill Israelis. They armed the people on that flotilla boat with weapons. The Israeli Navy officers were not prepared to see violence. And by international law, as soon as those people picked up clubs on that boat, they became international combatants. And if they died as enemy soldiers because they were executing violence. And Israel has every right, like every other nation in the world, to blockade, to make sure that weapons aren't coming in. 10,000 weapons or more, missiles have already come in. When Israel gives Gaza water pipes to carry water, they turn them into missiles. So Israel has every right to make sure the stuff coming in is not weapons. The Goldstone Report, this international joke by this guy who in South Africa reportedly hung all kinds of blacks who were innocent, mass murdering judge, and then he decides to be the head of this Human Rights Commission to pick on Israel for defending itself against missiles from Gaza. You have constant calls for jihad from worldwide Muslims, not all Muslims, but many. Then this idiot Helen Thomas who tells Jews that they have no right to be in the land of Israel. And what about the million Jews who came from Arab countries without compensation, Helen? Where are they supposed to go back to? To Saudi Arabia, where it makes it illegal to have a church there that's not a mosque? And then the Syrian ambassador to the so-called Human Rights Commission of the United Nations says that Israeli school children talk about eating flesh and biting flesh, and the American ambassador to the United Nations Human Rights Commission says nothing. These lies that are told. So these have to be fought by the people that care about truth and justice and righteousness, jihadism. You have to fight Al-Qaeda and the Taliban and the Iranians and those people in the world who want to fight and who want to kill innocents and destroy the one democracy in the Middle East. Nowhere do Arabs live freer than they do or better than the land of Israel. You know, they have more than a dozen members of the Israeli government, Knesset, which are Arabs. Is there one Jew in the Saudi Arabian government? Do they even have a government besides the king? What about Jordan? Can a Jew buy land in Jordan? No, upon pain of death. How about Egypt? I mean, it's the only democracy in the Middle East. So that's din. Until the Messiah comes, you have to execute judgment against the enemies of truth and justice and peace. And finally, shalom. The Palestinians teach their children to kill Jews and to hate Jews. Just check their curriculum. Whatever Abbas says in English to Western diplomats, what does he say in Arabic? And what does his curriculum say in Arabic? And what is his summer camps teaching violence? But we never give up on peace. The Jews don't, anyway. We always look for peace. We always try and hope that these countries will come around to their senses and want to live in peace, to fulfill the words of the prophets, that nation will not lift up sword against nation, and neither shall they learn war anymore. The violence of the world is coming from the jihadists, who are trying to take away the land that rightfully belongs to the Jewish people, as dictated by God, as dictated by history, as dictated by law. And Israel says, you want to live in 99% of the land mass? Fine, give us this little piece of land for the Jews the descendant of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, to live here, and we will help the whole world, as they're doing remarkably. In the book, read the Israel Test by George Gilbert. It says that 25% of all the significant innovations total in the world in the last decade came from Israel. And that's despite the oppression they're having and having to defend themselves every day against possible disaster. And so I say no to BDS in terms of boycott, divestment, and sanction, and yes to BDS, bracha, which means blessing, tout the blessings of Israel, din, judgment, execute judgment upon the enemies of Israel, and S for shalom, look for a way to find peace.